Hey guys, Dr. Childs here. Today we're going to be talking about fish oil. And we're going to be talking about how fish oil has been shown in multiple clinical studies to help with weight loss, specifically to help with patients burning fat mass, which is awesome. So let's talk about, number one, all of the benefits that you can get as it relates to weight loss with fish oil, and then we'll talk about what kind of dosages you have to take and how to take the supplement in order to get this benefit. So this is actually really interesting. So there's 6 main ways that fish oil can help you burn fat and lose weight. And so let's start with these in order here. So number one is fish oil will help you increase the amount of lean body mass that you have on your body. Okay, and I'm going to illustrate this point by looking at a graph. And so what people have done is or scientists have done is they've looked at fish oil, they looked at studies who have taken fish oil, and they know it's doing something really interesting in the body. Okay, they know that, and we'll talk about these studies here. But so what they did is they said, well, I wonder if patients taking fish oil by itself will have weight loss. So there was a bunch of studies that were done, and there were a lot of mixed results. Some showed that it did indeed cause weight loss. Others showed that people, had better lower markers of inflammation and all these other really good things, but then the weight stayed the same. And so they were like, well, we don't quite understand this. What's going on? So then what they started to do is they started to break this apart, because as you probably know, medicine and science isn't quite as easy as just looking at one variable and just looking at that in isolation and determining if something works or not. And fish oil, when you look at it a little bit deeper, several things are happening. So what this study did is it looked at meta-analysis, which is it took a bunch of different studies and it put them all together and it said what happened. So when it looked at it, it showed that people who were taking fish oil had an increase in fat-free mass. Okay, so what that means is they were actually showing an increase in everything unrelated to fat, which is usually represented as muscle mass. So put this in the back of your head. Fish oil was causing an increase in muscle mass, but it was also causing a decrease in fat mass. Okay, so what was happening is the people taking fish oil, 2 things were happening. Number one, their muscles were increasing, and number 2, their fat mass was decreasing. But here's where things get interesting, and this is why it can be kind of confusing if you don't understand this process. So when we look at your weight, and someone says, I want to lose weight, they really don't necessarily mean that the scale wants to go down, right? They just assume that as the scale goes down, they're burning fat in the process. Because whenever somebody says I want to lose weight, really what they're saying is I want to lose fat. I want to get rid of the extra fat that's on my body. Now, if they could get rid of 20 pounds of fat mass, this is actually a real world experiment, and it happens all the time. So somebody might lose 20 pounds of fat mass but gain 10 pounds of muscle mass, so they only lose 10 pounds total, but they lost a lot more fat. And so this is the exact same thing is happening in patients who take fish oil. So even though their weight, they might start out at 150 pounds and edit 150 pounds, they lost 5 pounds of fat in the process and gained 5 pounds of muscle in the process. That's significant. That's huge, because that's exactly what people are looking for. They don't want to be, they want to lose that extra fat around their belly. Like, their belly might shrink in the process, but the weight might stay the same, and that's okay, because that's really what people are going for here. So this is why this mechanism is why some of the results have been I wouldn't say conflicting, but just somewhat nebulous, in the sense that people weren't able to really put their finger down on it, and I mean scientists weren't able to. But the point is, fish oil, if used correctly, will result in an increase in muscle mass, okay, which is awesome. That's really good. So that's number one. Number 2 is it specifically reduces fat mass, and specifically it reduces visceral fat mass. And so, and again, here's another graph that we'll go over in just a second here, but let me explain what I mean by visceral fat mass. So there's different types of fat on your body, and some are more concerning to you in terms of how they play with your hormones and the increase in risk that they confer upon you as it relates to mortality and a number of other negative attributes in certain areas. So what I'm specifically talking about is fat that is inside your abdominal cavity. That's visceral fat. That's fat that's around the organs. So you might look at your belly and you might say, well, like you can kind of squeeze that fat around your belly. That's subcutaneous fat that's on the, it's not as deep into your body. But the fat that you're really worried about is the fat that surrounds your organs. That's the fat that's going to be causing changes to your metabolics. It's going to be interfering with your hormones. That's the fat that's going to cause leptin resistance. So when we talk about getting getting rid of fat, you might be more concerned with the superficial fat because you want a six-pack or whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, the more concerning fat is the stuff that's on the inside. It's a little bit deeper. And so what fish oil does is it gets rid of that fat, okay? And in the process, yes, you might think, well, I'd rather have the subcutaneous fat going away, and I can respect that. However, getting rid of the visceral fat will fix your hormones, which will make getting rid of that other fat a little bit easier. So you can look here in this graph that it showed that just using fish oil without anything else did show a reduction in this visceral fat mass. But when it was combined with exercise, look, it was a very dramatic reduction in fat mass there. So that's really good news. That's really great, because what that means for us is, number one, fish oil by itself will improve lean muscle mass. It will, if used by itself, reduce visceral fat mass. However, you get a synergistic benefit when you combine exercise with fish oil, which is great, which is awesome, because that's always what we want to do. We want to layer therapies on top of each other so that we can have that benefit. So it becomes more than just an additive equation. It's more of like a multiplicative or an exponential curve, if you will. So this is great news. So anyway, that bottom line, yes, it's supported by studies that it does indeed reduce fat mass. But like I said, it's accompanied usually with an equal amount of muscle mass in most patients, so that the total body weight stays about the same, even though you're losing fat mass, which is what we want. Number 3, and we're just gonna keep going here because there's a lot of benefits. So number 3, fish oil enhances thyroid function in the liver. So let's explain this a little bit more. So your thyroid hormone is one of the hormones, probably the major hormone involved in the regulation of your metabolism, right? I think we all know that, we all agree with that. I don't think anyone would argue with that. Now, why and how that occurs is a little less well understood, but it's felt to be related to the effects that thyroid hormone has on the body's ability to produce energy in the mitochondria and burn that energy and create heat. Okay, so one of the main ways that this occurs is in the liver. All right, and T3, which is the active thyroid hormone, activates a liver enzyme known as hepatic mitochondrial glycerophosphate dehydrogenase, which is a huge mouthful, but just believe me when I say that enzyme is involved in the production of heat, right? So the more energy and heat that you're producing, the higher your metabolism is. So fish oil seems to have a synergistic effect in boosting the activation of this liver enzyme. When it enhances the already existing function of thyroid hormone in the liver. So that's how it's working here. So it's taking the process that already exists in the body, or should exist, I should say, assuming that there's a adequate amount of thyroid hormone there, and just boosts it. Right, which is perfect, because this is really good, because this has special application in those patients who might be hypothyroid, because that process, almost every hypothyroid patient has some element of metabolic damage, meaning their metabolism is lower than it should be. So if you are a hypothyroid patient and you're taking fish oil may be beneficial, because it's going to boost up that metabolism, boost up the natural function of this enzyme in the liver. So that's how it can kind of enhance thyroid function in the liver. Number 4, increases insulin sensitivity and reduces glucagon. I talk about this a lot, but so hopefully by now you understand the correlation between weight gain, fat mass, and insulin levels. So high insulin levels are going to promote any calories that you consume in your body, and your body's going to take that in the presence of high insulin, shove it into your fat cells, and you will gain weight regardless of the amount of calories that you consume. So that's where it gets really important, because this is another one of those reasons why patients may reduce their calories to 1,000 calories per day, and they're like, why am I not losing weight? I'm actually gaining weight while I'm eating 1,000 calories. How can this possibly be? It's this way because of potential insulin and leptin and things like that. Like, this is how powerful these hormones are in manipulating what your body does with the food and the energy that you consume. Okay, so how does fish oil fit in here? Well, of course, it reduces insulin sensitivity and reduces glucagon, which therefore is going to reduce blood sugar levels. So we won't harp on that. Another really interesting thing here is that fish oil has been shown to reduce leptin levels and therefore treat leptin resistance. And this is a big deal, because there are very few things that will actually treat leptin resistance. So we're looking at there's a lot of things that you can use to treat insulin resistance if you know that that's the problem in your body. There are fewer things that you can use to treat leptin resistance, and that becomes a problem because to start with, leptin resistance is very difficult to treat anyway. And so when you have a larger repertoire of tools at your disposal to treat this condition, that's a good thing. And so fish oil has been shown to treat that. Number 6 is we've got reducing inflammation, which is really awesome. So inflammation in your body, inflammation is bad. You don't want to be having low levels of it, or I'm sorry, you don't want to be having high levels of inflammation going on in your body. The reason is because it's going to kind of slow down the efficiency of your system. It's going to reduce T4 to T3 conversion, therefore reducing thyroid function in the body, etc. So it's going to be it has a lot of negative effects as it relates to your ability to lose weight. And here's the cascade and the symptoms and what happens and how fish oil kind of interferes with that system. I'm not going to go over that just because of the time here. We're already getting a little longer than I anticipated. So the next thing is, well, how do you use fish oil? So here's the thing, and I have a whole list of people that should use it, what diseases it can help treat, and then how to kind of use it. But in order to get the benefits that I'm talking about here, you really need to be using the right dose, which is actually a fairly high dose compared to what most most supplements come in, and then you need to be using it for the proper duration of time. So one of the worst things that you could do is just go grab a fish oil supplement off the shelf at your grocery store or Costco or Walmart or something like that and say, well, there we go, I'm going to lose weight now. No, that's not going to happen. So you need to be taking the high enough dose, and it needs to be a high quality fish oil. So I have my recommendation down below that you can look at if you'd like. But in terms of the dosing that you will need is somewhere between 2,000 milligrams and 6,000 milligrams. So that's 2 to 6 grams. Okay, most of the time, fish oil, if it's a poor quality one, may have I don't know, 500 milligrams in it, right? In which case you might need 4 of those capsules in order to get the 2,000, which is on the low range. So that's why a lot of people who take these things, they're like, well, it didn't work for me. I took fish oil, it didn't work for me. Well, no, you didn't take the right dose and you didn't take the right quality of the supplement. That's probably why it didn't work. So remember, those two things are very important as it relates to any supplement, but specifically to fish oil. Why? Because you don't want your fish oil to have any oxidation or to change how effective it might be when you're consuming it. You don't want your body to have to use antioxidants to fight any oxidation that occurred because the way that the fish oil was processed, etc. So anyway, that's the story on fish oil. That's how it can actually help with weight loss, and it's actually a really good tool. It should not be used in isolation, but I have, I on my website I go over different ways that you can stack these therapies on one another so that the fish oil just becomes one part of a more comprehensive treatment plan. So anyway, I hope you guys found that helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.